Previously, when different B2B SaaS startups joined SaaS camp, I would share this channel matrix with them, showing them how you can leverage different marketing channels in order to get your startup to 1 million in ARR. However, recently I realized that many times when we are starting with different channels, there is one common trend which stays the same. And the trend is that the results we're able to get with Meta ads right now are the easiest, the most scalable, and simply the most energy efficient out of all other channels. Because I'm saying this as someone who has booked thousands of meetings through cold email, LinkedIn outbound, LinkedIn content, LinkedIn ads, and all the other channels for B2B SaaS startups. And if you were to ask me how in right now would I get a B2B SaaS startup to the first 1 to 3 million ARR, the answer I would give you is a Meta case study ad funnel. There are a few reasons behind it. So for the last couple of years, I've been sending a lot of cold emails with clients, and I think by now I've sent with them over 1 million. And the trick there is that when you approach cold email campaigns, one list can perform really well for you. You can get couple bookings every few hundred emails you're sending, and everything is just solid. And for many startups that are selling quite a niche adverse type solution, so for example, if you're like an accounting software that works for all B2B companies, this might not apply to you, because in your case you can basically get all B2B companies out there and just blast out like 100 domains, couple inboxes per each, and just go with booking 10-20 calls a day. Fine. But if you are growing a solution which is more niche specific, then you most often will not have the privilege of having like 5, 10, 15,000 contact email list, or okay, on the higher end, say it's gonna be 10 to 20k. But even a 20k list, sure, it can perform well for you for a few months, given you find an angle and copy that works. But then the next list has no guarantee to perform well for you. And then imagine what happens. You have a nice quarter, going from averaging like 3 calls a week to then 10, 15. You build up this compound for 3 months, and then you start running campaign into a new list, and turns out that this list is not performing anywhere near as nice as the old one. And you made a couple new hires, you increased your costs, but now you're getting again only 3-5 meetings every single week. And this is not cool, because you wanting to fix it, you then try out another list, and you find out that, oh, interestingly enough, it's again not performing nearly as nice as the first one. So that's how you have this drop off for a few months before you come back to sending emails to everyone who hasn't opened or who still hasn't replied to you from the first list. Similar story happens with LinkedIn outbound, because, well, there, sure, it can get you, let's say, 5-10 meetings per account, and you can have a nice account farm running outbound campaigns from a few accounts. However, there you're always operating on this verge of getting restricted and getting into a ban. And this is just so much headache all the time. And after doing this for years, I can tell you, look, there is just such easier ways for you to grow your startup, because with LinkedIn outbound, you're constantly operating on this edge of getting your account banned, because again, you want to push the limits 1 week, you want to place a couple SDRs in your account to have them increase your booking rates once your campaigns are started to performing well. And that's when the fun part begins, because you've been at 10 meetings for a week for quite some time. Now you want to get from 10 to 20 to 30. However, turns out it's nearly not as easy, because the other accounts you're launching are not performing nearly as nice as the first one. The guys who are placing into your accounts, well, first of all, there's like always trust issue that might be happening in your head, and fine, even there's trust part is fine, but any day the person can mess up the proxy settings, log into the account the wrong way, and get your LinkedIn account banned, which unfortunately happened to me. That's the thing with outbound there. And then sure, there are LinkedIn ads, and I am still running different campaigns with different clients for LinkedIn ads right now, as I'm doing with LinkedIn outbound and cold email. But the story there is like, unless you're selling at least a 10k annual solution or above, ideally something between 20 and 100 grand annual subscription. Unless you're in that range, it's much tougher for you to get your numbers aligned, and especially with most efficient LinkedIn ad strategy being targeting groups, sometimes you may find that there are not as many groups that are for your niche, and again after a few months you are left with two options: either you go broad market size and then your numbers become just so much worse, or there's no other option because you run out of your target lists otherwise. As with LinkedIn ads, running campaigns to audiences which are less than 15, less than 30,000 people is just rarely worth it unless it's like some killer very specific type campaign. But what I found in the last months is that the case study meta ad funnel is performing better than anything that could come close. It's just, I think in the last few months it has generated nearly $500,000 or already $500,000 in ARR for one startup I'm working with, and hundreds of thousands in deals for a few other ones. And the whole strategy is quite straightforward because there you have a lot fewer moving pieces. You are not operating under the risk of getting your account banned because you run ads and you pay Meta to be advertising, so they want to help you do it rather than ban you for it. Yes, you sometimes get some issues with your accounts, but practically this is like all solvable, and unless you're advertising something really sketchy, it should all be fine. Then just the scalability aspect of it, because as Meta has access to 1.5 billion people, the thing which I hear every other day now is, Denis, our customers are not on Facebook. Look, I'm 26 years old right now, and I've been helping out B2B SaaS startups for maybe last 3 years or so. I have never in my entire life personally met a B2B SaaS founder who I knew is active on Facebook. And yet, my entire customer acquisition strategy right now is running Meta ads. Why? Because I know that Meta has 1.5 billion people. That's it, and that's all you need to know. So that's why, yeah, sure, for example, if you want to approach some super enterprise type companies, potentially this is not going to be a fit, and they're still cold email and some form of LinkedIn retargeting are going to do a better job. But if that's not the case and you do target a broader audience rather than Fortune 500 companies, then it works fantastically, because the couple of steps you need to take are to put together a case study and turn it into a marketing asset, run Meta ads to it, get opt-ins. Some people are going to book straight away. The rest you book into calls using SMS retargeting. Then you get the calls and close sales. That's simple. This strategy with one startup I'm working with is getting between 30 and 60 calls for the last 4 months we're doing this. It took about 2 to 3 days to launch, and from the first attempt the campaign has been getting us like by now hundreds of calls booked or so, and has generated nearly $500,000 in revenue by far, in annual revenue. It's one of the easiest ways I've made so much money for someone as far as I can remember, because if you can just look into how little effort comparing with all this fighting cold email restrictions and LinkedIn restrictions and other limits that you there need to execute, is just such a clear winner, right? That's why I'm now a huge fan of a case study funnel, and to be frank, I'm slowly shutting down, for example, like all 30 plus other ways I'm getting people more sales in B2B SaaS world, just to max out this case study meta ad funnel. That's how much I love it. It's quick to set up, scales infinitely, gets you in front of the right people, and instead of you needing to, for example, like follow up on different prospects as it usually would happen in outbound, and then you need to adjust and so on. Here you have more leverage by default because people are coming to you. This makes it much easier for you to close all the deals because most times B2B SaaS founders are not killer salesmen, and you having more leverage and more authority from the start, it makes the whole sales process a lot easier for you to navigate, because then you just say, okay, what brought you here? They answer, and then you quickly turn this into sale. So straightforward sales process, quick to set up, straightforward ways to optimize it, and these are just a couple of reasons why I'm now like literally shutting down 30 plus ways I'm getting people customers and making my entire program inside SaaS Camp tailored to this one, to help as many B2B SaaS startups hit 1 to 3 million ARR as soon as possible. Because as long as you are fine with paying between 50 and a couple $100 cost per call, I would say we're getting like $10 to $30 calls on the lower end and $400 to $500 calls on the higher end. I guess for 90% of solutions I've ever worked with, this unit economics would make a lot of sense, because then thanks to you closing people not through outbound but through inbound, it allows you to have a higher close rate, navigate the sales process quicker, and then they're coming to you because they have higher interest already, which also shortens the sales cycle, what affects your quarterly targets at done. So that's why the case study meta ad funnel is the answer to how I would get a B2B SaaS startup to the first 1 to 3 million ARR right now. But of course there are some exceptions, unless you are doing something very enterprisey driven, then you need to become a bit more creative in terms of your customer acquisition, but that's not really surprising. I appreciate you watching this one and talk to you soon.